I'll call to order this meeting of the Somerset Berkley Regional School Committee at 6:04 p.m. Due notice having been posted. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions may be made whether perceived or unperceived by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. We'll do a roll call of members present. Ms. Ferreira?
Present.
Ms. Ashley?
Present.
Mr. Machado?
Present.
Ms. O'Brien?
Present.
Mr. Pasternak?
Present.
Ms. Solomon?
Present.
Mr. Vieira?
Present.
Also with us and the chair is present, that would be me. Also present with us this evening are our Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Jeffrey Schoonover, our Director of Curriculum, Ms. Elizabeth Haskell, our Director of Special Education, Ms. Megan Ashton, our Principal, Dr. Susan Brailsford. Did I forget anyone? And then our Recording Secretary, Ms. Robin Vaccaro. I would ask everyone if you're able to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Please note that the next regularly scheduled meeting of this committee will be held on Tuesday, April 8th, 2025 at 6 p.m. here in the Somerset Berkley Regional High School Library. With the committee's permission, I'd like to take a few items out of order this evening. So I'd like to start this evening with the report from our student representative, Mr. Ryan Vieira.
All right, thank you. So good evening, all. So looking at the agenda today, I'm going to kind of cut things out and put things in where they belong. So to touch a little bit on what we're going to hear later from some students regarding clubs going on at the school. So DECA, our business organization, so 3 students are progressing onto the national competition, and they're currently organizing fundraisers to raise money for that trip. Academic World Quest, which is a group that works to answer questions. It's like a Jeopardy-style game where you answer questions regarding current events, world affairs, stuff like that. So 3 groups went to the competition. 2 groups placed, 1 placed first place, and the other placed third. So that first place team is looking to travel to Washington, D.C. to compete at the national level. So that was a great success for them. Regarding HOSA, which is a future health professionals group, they are traveling to the state conference on April 12th, which is where students will find out if they are going to be going to the state conference in Nashville, Tennessee. So that is something exciting that students are looking forward to. Now, upcoming on April 14th is the STEM Showcase, which involves students from HOSA and from Envirothon. So that's on April 14th, which is a half day. So during school, students will be presenting their completed projects, which will be on either medical, research projects that they've displayed, which could be on posters or actual models. I know some students 3D printed stuff, so that will be interesting to see, along with the work from Envirothon students. Moving on to what Performing Arts has been working on. So Electrify is preparing for their last show choir competition, which will be in Waltham on April 5th. And then the Amplify group was awarded a silver medal at their show choir competition last Saturday. So congratulations to them. And lastly, the opening night of the drama, The Addams Family, is April 12th at 7 p.m. And tickets are already on sale on the school website. So again, like I said, looking at the agenda, I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much. Any questions? Thank you. Lots of wonderful things happening. Thank you. Okay. Next on the agenda, we have a lot to celebrate this evening. So let's start with all the good news first. So before we recognize the members of the 2 teams that are here with us this evening, I just want to note that we will be having the state championship field hockey team here with us at our next meeting in April 8th. So I don't want anyone to think that we have forgotten them. They'll be here at our next meeting, so join us for that as well. In the meantime, if folks wouldn't mind if we take item 2 first, we would like to recognize members of the co-op, the Bishop Stang Somerset Berkley Co-op girls hockey team. They are D1 runner-up. Do we have our players here with us? Come on down. We're going to have you stand right here, and so everyone can see you, and we're going to embarrass you for a few minutes if you don't mind. So, all right. So Mr. Francis was kind enough to provide us with some highlights that I think some folks may be familiar with, but we'd like to share with everyone. So we want to acknowledge these 4 student athletes, Megan Costa, Adrian Norcott, Peyton Morosco, and Drew Pacheco. These members of the co-op hockey team finished the season with a record of 14-5-1, which earned them the number 15 seed in the MIAA Division I Girls Hockey Tournament. These are just a few of the highlights of the tournament. So in the round of 32, they defeated number 18 Winthrop 4-2, and this was the first tournament win in co-op program history. It gets better. In the round of 16, in the Sweet 16, they defeated number 2 Notre Dame Academy 4-0 on the road, which is just, let me say that again. They defeated number 2 Notre Dame Academy 4-0 on the road. A huge win to knock off one of the top-ranked programs in the state. They went on to the round of 8, where they defeated number 7 1-0 and advanced to the Final Four. And in the Final Four, they defeated number 6 Methuen in overtime 3-2. Is this all correct? Perfect. If it's not, I was going to blame Mr. Francis. And lastly, they had the opportunity, the well-earned opportunity, to play at the TD Garden for the state championship. They lost to the number 1 seed Hingham 5-2 in a game that was a lot closer than that score may indicate. And what a wonderful dilemma many of us had here to have 2 state championship games to try to attend in the same day. We are so proud of you. We want to recognize you and your coaches and all the hard work that you have done. And you are a credit to this school and to this athletic program. And we congratulate you on a great season. Thank you. We have a little bit of something. There we go. So we're going to present you.
Thank you.
There you go. We know that rings maybe are in the future, but here's Peyton. There you go. There you go. And there you go. Congratulations. Does anybody want to add anything? I don't need to do all that. No. Okay. Need a sip of water after all those accomplishments. Next, we would like to recognize members of our boys basketball Division II state champions. Come on down, gentlemen. We have Coach Slater here with us. You have your coaching staff with you.
I have Andy Warren.
Come on down. Box out.
Can't
Close out.
It'll be the first time all year.
I'm gonna have Coach Slater say a few words about your accomplishments this year. All I'll say is how much fun it was watching you play this year, and that I couldn't speak for 2 days after the final game because I was yelling so loudly and annoying everyone around me, which was great. And I'm sure that there were a lot of other people who had a similar experience. So I know many of us here attended many of the games, and it was great to watch your teamwork, your selfless play, and the revenge tour was just a lot of fun, and you made us all very proud. I don't know if Coach Slater or Superintendent Schoonover would like to add a few words.
Yeah, I would like to thank the administration, the faculty, and everybody that came to all of our games, especially out in Springfield. I mean, to play a top-ranked team out in Springfield, we had more fans there than they did. I thought it was great. These guys worked their butts off all year, all through the summer. You know, a lot of them gave up their personal stats to make our team better. So we just really want to thank everybody for it. Thank you.
Finn, do you have any words of wisdom?
I don't know if it's wisdom, but I don't know if it's wisdom. No words of wisdom.
It's not wisdom.
Max is the team spokesman. So
Max
if you
is
want
All right, Max.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'd like to kind of go off what Coach said. Just thank everybody for being so involved with us this year. It was a lot of fun. Seeing how much impact it had on the town, how much the town was involved, and that was really cool to see. So thank you everyone for supporting, and we really appreciate it. So.
That last game, made us a little nervous when they got almost within 20, but then we settled down and we felt pretty confident you're gonna come home with that victory. And I also want to say the fans, I think all year long that I saw, but the fans at the Tsonga Center, the Jumbotron, it wasn't even close, right? It wasn't even close. So all this.
I didn't notice it during the game, but once we went back and watched the film, it was so great. It was great for everybody, both towns, the communities, and yeah, I thought it was great for us, great for our school. Put us on the map a little bit. So.
Oh, yeah.
I'd say a lot, yeah. So, we know not everyone's here. We have certificates for all of you. So maybe I'll give these to Coach and we can get them out to the folks who are here and then get them to the players who couldn't be here. But I think this is what putting on a uniform and representing your school is all about. So we're proud of you. We hope you had a lot of fun. I don't know, pressure's on for spring sports. Like, we've got a fall state champion, winter state champion, so no pressure for anyone else. But it's been a heck of a year so far. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
I unfortunately didn't have the opportunity to see any of your games live. I was able to see it online, especially during the playoffs, especially when I'm out of town. But one of your biggest fans is the guy who covers your games all the time. And believe it or not, the first game after you won, he and I went for dinner, and he says, they're winning the championship. So I just want you to know, he called it right away, and I haven't had him ever say that about any other team, but he literally called. He says, this is such a great team. They will win the championship.
He threatened us if we didn't make it to the state championship. Because he was on his cruise, so he said, you have to make it. I can see it.
So just so you know, he saw your talent right from the beginning. So congrats to all of you.
Thank you.
I know not everyone's here, but I'm still gonna, I'm gonna read your names because I think they should be read officially into the record. So, Finian B. York. And Brady Carpenter. Congrats. And Carson Christofoli.
I didn't take all of them.
Well, make a pile. All right. Alex Crook. There you go, sir. Ryan Crook. There you go, sir. Aiden Dukran.
Not here.
Where's Kevin Dos Santos? I'll have to have a word with him. Max Finlaw, spokesperson.
Thank you.
Max Hansen. I'm going to read everyone's name here. Zach King. Callan Langlois. Ben Luro, Jacob Luro.
Want to take Ben's too?
There you go. Brendan McDonald. Congratulations. Colton Pacheco. Caden Rayum. And he's only a junior, Dominic Taylor. Congratulations to everyone.
I can do those for them.
Here, I'll give you a folder and everything.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Right.
Can I just say one thing? So, you know when the teams win the Super Bowl, and you say, what are you gonna do? And they wanna go to Disney World? When I asked Coach Slater, what do you wanna do? He wants to be they wanna be the Grand Marshal of the Music Town Parade. And he said, do you have any pull? And I said, absolutely not. But there's a lot of people here tonight. My house is full, so just throw it out.
I might be able to put in a good word for you.
All right.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations.
I do know a couple.
Thanks again, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
I know a couple people. So every year they're like, what are we gonna do? Perfect. I don't know how you're gonna.
This is it. The celebrations and recognition will continue. The boys basketball team and the field hockey team will be heading to the State House on Monday. They've been invited by Representative Thurber, Senator Rodrick's, so they'll have a tour of the State House and some recognition there as well.
Fabulous. Then get us some more funding while you're there.
That would be great.
I think from here we'll go in order. Next item on the agenda is discussion and action on the approval of the DECA trip to Orlando, Florida.
Where are we?
I'll give you the way.
There's fine.
Yeah.
The floor is yours.
Well, so let me go here then. So we have three students, all three of them are here. Hunter Pearson, Ian Folds, and Aisha Imran. They've been fantastic all year. Actually, they've been fantastic since they've been members of DECA. And all three have leadership positions, so we felt it would be nice if they could go to Orlando, because we have spots that we earned. So they could get some experience, and two of them I know are seniors, Hunter and Ian, and they want some, they're going on to college, so this would be a great opportunity for the both of them to get the leadership experience with conferences that are offered there. And then Aisha, who's done an amazing job and has a lot of passion for DECA, she's going to be stepping even further into a leadership position, not only with our chapter, but with DECA overall next year. So it'd be a great opportunity for her to just absorb as much knowledge and from all the speakers that will be there and all the workshops that are there. And I think it'd be a great experience for her. So that's what we're here for, the request, if we could, get approval for the trip.
I know the information's in your folder. Does anyone on the committee have any questions about the trip?
I actually have no questions, just that I was able to read both their essays. Very impressive. Congratulate to the three of you. It's definitely something that I think the committee as a whole would be supporting their achievement, and we wish them nothing but obviously great success and also the experience that they can earn. The only item that I was wondering, one, I'm glad that they're going to both Disney and Hollywood, and is it Universal as well?
Universal.
Universal. Obviously, the trip is a little costly. Are there other mechanisms for them to pay for it, or?
We have some fundraising taking place to help alleviate some of that pain that they're going through with the cost. However, they are going to have to contribute some on their end as well. That's something that's been done in the past where students that have gone, they've always contributed something. It hasn't been covered through just fundraising efforts, but fundraising will help lower the cost for sure. Yeah.
I know that in the past that we have, sometimes this committee has made a contribution towards some of the registration costs for some of the participants. And I know Ms. Pellerin is not here at the moment, but I'm looking at the cost for the registration is $217 per student per registration, is that correct? And then obviously the travel and the tickets. Is there, members of the committee have an interest in being able to offset some of the registration costs for the students, as we've done, I think, in the past?
Yes.
Okay. Not to put you on the spot, Mr. Schoonover, but do you think at $217 per student for registration, is that something that we could?
Ms. Pellerin and I spoke about this last week with the expectation that that would be the request, so yes, we can cover that.
Okay. So.
So with
motion?
that, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the registration fees of $217 times 3 for $651 to cover the registration fees for the 3 DECA students.
Second.
The motion by Mr. Machado and seconded by Ms. Ashley. Is there anything further on discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. So we know it's not much, but we want you to know how proud we are of all of you and your efforts, and we hope that that will help a little bit, alleviate some of the cost. We know that it's a really worthwhile experience for you, and it's great for the district that you represent us in this way. And so I have a motion to approve the, do we have to approve the trip itself?
I'll make a motion that we approve the DECA trip to Orlando, Florida from April 27th to the 29th.
Okay, it's actually from the 25th through the 29th.
I stand corrected, the 25th to the 29th.
Oh, yeah, there's a, sorry, I have a correction. All right, so the motion by Mr. Machado is to approve the DECA trip to Orlando, Florida for the International Competition, which will be held April 25th through 29th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Ashley. Anything further on discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you for generosity and improving the trip. I know they'll enjoy it, so thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you. Congratulations, everyone. Have a great trip. Let us know how it goes. The next item on the agenda, we have so many students doing so many amazing things. This is great. I love this agenda. The next item on the agenda is to discuss and act on approval of the Model UN trip to Washington, D.C. From April 28th through, 27th through 29th, I think. And this is for the Academic World Quest.
Good evening. Alice Farris and Jack Correa, we are the co-advisors of the Model UN Club, and we took 3 teams up to Emmanuel College, and we had 2 teams placed, and the team behind me, which is going to be in front of me in a second. Come on, guys.
Yeah, get in front.
All right. Here is our first place team, and they have this unique opportunity. We are seeking your approval to go to Washington, D.C., so where they can compete. They will also be allowed to go into a think tank. They're going to go to the U.S. Institute of Peace, and possibly the embassy. So in addition to the competition, they're going to have some activities that they'll be able to participate in, and I think it's just such a wonderful learning experience for them. They are a wonderful crew, and I want them to tell you
Take it away, Jasper.
Take it away, guys. Jasper is up, I think. So we have Jasper Troutman, Deanna DeStefano, Allison Kettle, and Abigail Kettle.
All secrets. All right, well, hello, everybody. So to begin, I'm very proud of all 4 of us. We studied and worked very hard for this, and we're very happy to have the opportunity to go on this trip. So as for cost, expenses will be paid for by the Boston World Affairs Council, which is awesome. We will receive 3 hotel rooms, 2 for team members, 1 for an advisor, 5 plane tickets, competition registration, and some of the meals. So most of them will be paid for and provided by the Boston World Affairs, but some of them will be coming from us, which is totally okay. Hotel and airfare for one advisor is provided, or no, will be required with some fundraising and will be self-paid. But for the majority of us, it will be also provided by the World Affairs Council. And transportation will be to and from TF Green. So we will be departing from there and returning to there after the trip. And this will be occurring on the 27th through the 29th of April. As for the itinerary, as I just mentioned, it will be from the 27th through the 29th. The actual competition will take place on Monday, and there will be a live stream up that will be available for all to watch. Other events that we will participate in will include, as Ms. Ferris mentioned, the think tank, as well as a tour of George Washington University. And we also will have the opportunity to go to a panel with a senator, or a member, State Department member of Congress, which will be very exciting and a good opportunity for us to go through. And the hotel that we will be staying at will be the Westin in DC City Center, which is right by the competition, so that'll be great. So we will be able to walk right to there, to the Institute of Peace. So yeah, that is what's on tap for our trip. We're all very excited.
Does anyone have any questions? Is this the first time that?
We did win in 2020, but the event was virtual that year, so we had 4 students attend Washington, D.C. in their bedrooms.
Yeah.
Fortunately. So,
They sent us a banner and
yeah,
check.
we did get that. But this is a much better prize.
Definitely.
That sounds fabulous. Does anyone have any questions? That sounds like a great opportunity. And thanks to the Boston World Affairs
Yes.
Council
Yes.
for.
And the Washington office also, they provide the meals and those types of things, so both affairs councils are sponsored.
That's amazing.
Can I just ask a quick question? How are you going to be transported from the school to TF Green?
Right now, I still have competition budget lines, so I'm hoping that I can use those funds that I still have
Okay.
to use this for the vans.
Normally, something that the school committee always likes to do is obviously try to at least cover the registration fees. I'm wondering if, Mr. Schoonover, if you can arrange Mr. Rosario to take them with a couple of buses, and this way they wouldn't have to spend, just so we can show their appreciation through, we're really impressed, so this way at least perhaps you can use that savings of the transportation and perhaps use it on additional meals or whatever you need to do
Okay.
for the students as well.
Thank you. We would appreciate that.
With that said, I would entertain a motion to approve the Model UN trip to Washington DC for the Academic World Quest, April 27th through 29th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Machado, seconded by Ms. O'Brien. Anything on discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Let us know how it goes.
We will. They'll be back.
Okay. Continuing on with our student recognition, the next item on the agenda is to recognize our February visionaries. I'm going to do my best with names, please. Grant me some grace. Okay. We're going to recognize James Biscaglia, Independent, Shane Delaney, Respectful, Annalise Lata, Resilient, Ariana Machado, Academic, Aiden Rogers, Respectful, Shelby Smith, Empathetic, Daniel Svoboda, Digital Citizen, and Lily Thomas, Resilient. Those are our February visionaries. And catching up, we'd also like to recognize the March visionaries. We have Emily Almeida, Empathetic, Kayla Botello, Academic, Savannah DeFrias, Resilient, Eva Espinal, Independent, Leland Irizarry, Respectful, Connor McLeod, Digital Citizen, Miette Melanson, Empathetic, Corey Tickle, Resilient, and Ryan Vieira, Academic. Congratulations to those students for exemplifying our traits. Next on the agenda, we have discussion and possible action on the physical education waiver policy. And I know that, I'm sorry, switch glasses. You have the proposed language in your folder. I don't know, Mr. Schoonover, do you want to walk us through that, or does Dr. Brailsford, or?
Sure, I can introduce it, and then Dr. Brailsford can jump in to answer any questions or to expand on anything that I say or misstate. But this is, we've talked about this a little bit in the past, about having a waiver for students who compete in typically in an MIAA sport, but this is also expanding into some other groups. If they are a senior and participate in at least 2 seasons, then they can opt out of their PE class in their senior year. And in doing so, the point really is to add another class that they otherwise would not be able to take. It's not to receive an extra, or say a full year of a study hall. So the language here is that students in grades 12 are eligible to opt out of their physical education class if they meet the following requirements. At least 2 seasons of the varsity sport prior to the start of the senior year, or at least 2 seasons of the following musical extracurricular activities: marching band, show choir, spring musical, prior to the start of the senior year. As I said, students who choose to opt out must take a course and may not enroll in a study hall. And then if for some reason they are unable to complete the course or extracurricular expectations, they will be automatically re-enrolled in a semester 2 physical education class. So this is the first time we are looking to do this. Perhaps in the future, depending on how many students do choose to have that waiver for the PE class, maybe we would look at expanding it into juniors and seniors, or just see in the future what else, how we might want to modify it. But this is our first attempt, so we figured we'd keep it at this level right now. Anything, Dr. Brailsford?
The only thing that I'm not sure we made really clear in number 1 is that it would be strictly Somerset Berkley sports, and that's because we have oversight over the amount of activity, and we did decide to put the musical extracurriculars into. That basically comes from me participating in the Christmas concert, where I can tell you they do as much aerobic activity as any varsity sport, and put that out there. So it's 2 seasons, and if you kind of think of it, by the time semester 1 is over, you've got the fall season over, and you've already started the winter. So we already know if you're either almost done or at least starting. And then, so that's the kind of checkpoint, and we're going to pilot it and see how it goes, and we'll be back at this time next year letting you know if we're going to expand it or change it, but that's the proposal.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So when we say varsity sport, do we really mean MIAA, interscholastic sport? I mean, if you're a junior, then you play JV?
We made varsity.
I'm sorry?
That was the policy that we went off of, was that they were varsity athletes, and this was something that by junior year, they were varsity athletes committed to the sport, and, you know, this wasn't something that I'm gonna opt into my senior year type thing. So that was the policy. We modeled it off of other policies that we had looked at, so.
Okay. And then I just want to clarify, so the students would have to be 2 seasons prior to the start of senior year and continue into senior year? I think that would probably, you would probably want to make that explicit, I would think. I just have I'm questioning the insistence that it be varsity. I have no problem that it be a Somerset Berkley sport, but if I'm a junior, if I play, I don't know, 2 seasons, I'm thinking of wrestling, for example, right? Where for wrestling, they wrestle off, right, to say who plays varsity, right? Like, so, and only 1 student per weight class is technically a varsity wrestler. So I would like to see it expanded to, as long as it's an interscholastic sport. I mean, I think if the notion is that they meet a fitness requirement and they're practicing regularly and they're participating as members of a team, I don't know that, to me, I don't think they should have to be on a varsity level. They might make varsity their senior year, who knows? But I'm curious about that piece. I have no problem with the waiver. And I like the idea of starting small and seeing how it goes, starting with seniors. I have no problem with it's not an excuse to get an extra study hall. I like all that. I just find the varsity part might be a little bit restrictive, particularly for some sports. And if it's really about fitness, I'm not sure there's a huge difference between a JV basketball player and a varsity basketball player. Both run, they both do all those things. That's my concern about that. And then I would just suggest making it explicit that if they decided not to play their senior year, that then they would be expected to take PE course. Those are my questions. I don't know what the rest of the community feels.
I actually concur with Ms. Andrews a little bit. I mean, especially since you have to do it before your senior year. I mean, if you're playing JV football your sophomore year and you're playing varsity football your junior year, I feel like you're probably in pretty good physical condition to be able to waive a PE class. Same thing with basketball and probably many other sports, because you really have to have this completed by your junior year. And then that's that piece. And then I guess maybe I'm not clear. So when you say Somerset Berkley, what about like the stand co-op? Does that count? Oh, yeah, okay.
It's
I just wanted to
really
make sure,
excluding participation in a club sport or something that happens like an A basketball team or something like that happens
So any
outside
co-op
of
sport, okay.
the high school.
And we recognize that there are a lot of students at this school that are doing sports outside of the MIA, but we don't have oversight over how much participation they have, so that's why we're starting with this. I think the thought process behind it was, in the small number of sports that we have cuts, there's a possibility that somebody doesn't make a team their senior year. But I mean, I don't have any problem with junior varsity versus varsity the junior year, and then they're playing, as long as they're playing. I mean, that's kind of the point, so.
Yeah, because I feel like, especially say like in football, because I'm more familiar with it, I mean, you may have a lot of sophomores who are technically on the JV team, but they are playing maybe a little bit of varsity, but they're practicing with the varsity every single day. And I mean, they're working out hard. So, I mean, they would probably be eligible to pass any type of physical education requirement they would have by their senior year. And then if they're playing into their senior year, they would probably certainly have that second varsity year. So, I mean, I think this is kind of what maybe Ms. Andrews was going at, is maybe if we could have that amended to, varsity or junior varsity sport prior to the start of their senior year. I'd be more comfortable with that.
Madam Chair? Oh, sorry. I was just, first of all, thank you for mentioning the juniors, because when this was being brought up just a second ago, the very first thing I asked Mr. Vieira is how many juniors take a full year, and he said that's also a half year as well. So I'm glad that you're starting off with because that was my very first reaction of buying out the juniors, but I can understand. Regarding the varsity piece, I completely agree, because show choir, for instance, when this was first brought up, I remember someone asked me to ask my daughter how much activities, and I think her response was 1,000 times more activity than in a regular PE class. But I'll just use the show choir piece as well. They have Amplify and Electrify. I believe Electrify is the varsity and the Amplify is the junior varsity. So that was another mentioning that I was going to mention, is something else about my own niece. She didn't make the varsity team as a junior, but she played just as hard in the JV volleyball team and then on the senior year. So I'm glad that you're all in agreement, because those were the biggest concerns that I had when I first read this. So as long as the administration feels comfortable removing the varsity piece, and I am in complete agreement with it should be a sport that is within the school or a co-op program.
So Brian?
Yes, would it start for this next school year? So I know they've already chosen classes, we'll be able to accommodate.
What we're gonna do is we're finishing the process of sections this week. We're gonna sit down with guidance, and then an email is going to go out to the current junior class saying this is the policy. If you're interested in opting into this, schedule an appointment with your guidance counselor and move forward. But they need to know what class they're going to opt into.
Any other questions?
And that's another issue we currently have with the junior class. So going back to what Mr. Machado said, is right now, phys ed is backed up to civics junior year, so that would open up a whole new, like, we wouldn't have anything for them to kind of opt into it at this point in time, and we already don't want to encourage students in study halls. There wouldn't be anywhere for them to go. So we want to pilot it, see how it goes. There's kind of some logistic oversight issues of how are we going to monitor this that we have to figure out. So we're trying to start small so that we can kind of work that all out.
And that was my only question in terms of logistics. If you have someone who plays historically a fall and spring sport, by the time spring sports begin, you're already maybe a quarter into the semester, right? Or you're a term in, so you can't necessarily go back and retroactively implement, or maybe you can, right? We've done a lot of creative things since 2020, right? But you know that's.
Well, what we can do is thanks to 2020, we have a virtual PE class that was created, so they would be enrolled in class PE, and there would be an additional part that they'd have to do on their own to make up that.
Any other questions? Okay. So in that case, then I would entertain a motion to approve the physical education waiver policy for grade students, beginning with the 2025-2026 school year. And for the proposal, we would strike the word varsity and maybe just substitute it with Somerset Berkley. That would cover it. And I think that was really it. All those, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Pasternak, seconded by Ms. O'Brien. Anything further on discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda, we have the February financial statement. Go back into my folder. Is that the year-to-date? Mm-hmm. Okay. So in your folder, it's the year-to-date financials, March, the PDF. I know Ms. Pellerin isn't here, but did everyone have a chance to look at that? And are there any questions that we could either bring forward to her or perhaps through Mr. Schoonover?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Next then, we'll move on to the discussion and action on budget amendments. Ms. Pellerin provided us with a pretty detailed memo regarding several budget adjustments. I think there are a total of 29. Does anyone have any questions or concerns about any of the proposed adjustments for the FY '25 school year budget? Okay, does that make sense?
I like the way she outlined them.
Yeah,
Very
that
easy
was
to follow, for sure.
Yes, if you could pass that out. This format, I found it to be very helpful. So if you could tell her thank you from us, that would be great. In that case, I would entertain a motion to approve the March budget amendments as outlined in Ms. Pellerin's memo dated March 21st, 2025.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Ferrer and seconded by Ms. O'Brien. Anything further on discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Next, if it pleases the committee, I'd like to move, we have, I believe, several students present who would like to participate in public input prior to our vote on the FY26 budget. So I'd like to move public input next. So for public input, I'm not sure how many folks want to participate. Just as a reminder, we generally do 3 minutes per speaker. If you could just state your name and if you're a student or whatever your affiliation is, and the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Keegan Medeiros. I am a junior here at SPRHS, and I would like to talk about the use and the maintenance of the football fields as well as all the athletic fields as a whole. So I would like to ask about usage of those fields over the summer as to how they're used, because I asked around to several teachers who are coaches of sports teams as well as the gym teachers as to how they are used, and the general consensus was they are used about 1 to maybe generous 3 weeks over the summer. And I would like to suggest maybe the idea of using them for something more productive, whether it's running summer camps through them or renting them out to other basketball teams or any associations for any purpose as a way to get an increased amount of revenue. I asked Matt Bednards, who is from the Catholic Youth Organization. He rents out the basketball court at Bishop Connolly for use during the winter months, and he said that Bishop Connolly charges about $75 an hour, and there was one in Langston that charges $80 an hour, and those facilities are significantly older than the facilities that we have here at Somerset Berkley, so I feel like we could charge even more than that, and it would still be a fairly reasonable amount, and so I feel like that's a little bit of an underused idea. And not only just the basketball courts, but as well as our tennis courts, soccer fields, football fields, our track as well, both indoor and outdoor. I understand that the baseball fields and the football fields might be under maintenance over the course of this summer, but moving forward in the future, I feel like it could be a good way to increase revenue that we don't really tap into very much. And then on the note of the repairs to the football field and baseball field, I would like to suggest that, I'm under the assumption that our football field will be replaced with turf coming ahead. That's true. I would like to propose the idea of replacing it, instead of with turf, with grass, with a natural replacement for the field, because of not only a decrease in cost short term, but also long term, as well as some of the benefits that could bring to our students. So I did some calculations. So we are spending about $700,000 on the returfing of the football field. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. So that would amount to about $11.66 per square foot, more or less. If I'm assuming that, well, the actual dimensions of the football field, I believe, are 576,000 square feet. So I rounded that up to 600,000 for the purpose of making calculations easier. According to various sources that I found on the internet, around $11 is about right for artificial turf. However, using local soil, that can reduce the cost to about $5.25 per square foot, which would be a little bit less than half. But assuming that we get worse than that, let's like say $6 or $7, that would still be a substantial decrease in the amount of money that we're planning on spending for that for the year coming forward. I have a couple other statistics, such as heat reduction, that grass retains heat significantly less than turf does. And the NFL Players Association gave a survey to all members of all teams, and 82.4% said that they're more likely to be injured on a turf field than a natural field. 89.1% said they experienced more soreness and fatigue, and 69.4% said that they prefer grass in general for a playing experience over the use of turf. And as well as some new developments in that says that, so for the National Library of Medicine, says that the turf pellets used are in fact carcinogenic, not extremely, but mildly carcinogenic, and the European Union Registration, Evaluation, Authorization, and Restriction of Chemicals has actually banned the sale of polymeric infill starting in 2031 and extending onward for the foreseeable future. So not only from a cost perspective, but from a safety perspective moving forward, as well as the main concern with that is the maintenance costs are higher for dirt than as opposed to a turf field. Most sources that I've found places the cost of maintenance for artificial turf at about $5K a year. Is that about right? I don't know if anybody knows that, but that's what I found from research. And the amount would probably increase to about $23K per year, which, although is a substantial increase, would still be a significant benefit to us to do that, especially since it does not have to be replaced every 10 to 15 years as the current turf would have to. So I would like to propose the idea of that amendment being in place to maybe cut the cost, and we can maybe divert those costs to other departments that are in more major need of funding at the moment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Daniel Sabota. I'm a senior at Somerset Berkley Regional High School. And I'm here to talk about STEM education because it's something that I noticed was in the budget with science, tech, and math specifically. So I wrote a little thing. I'm Daniel Sabota. I am a 2-year member of the math team, a 2-year tutor at the middle school, and a 3-year president of the SBRHS Cyber Club run by Dr. Burke. I would like to tell you a bit about myself and my journey in STEM at Somerset Berkley. In my sophomore year, I took the PLTW course, Computer Science Essentials. This is an entry-level course to computer science concepts and one of the 3 main entry points for computer science at the high school. STEM's been a focal point in my life, originally wanting to be an engineer, holding a love of math and science in school, and now desiring to further my education in computer science. The class was an originator for my love of programming and allowed me to learn incredible things both in and out of the classroom's curriculum. That would not be possible without our incredible STEM teachers. I have seen firsthand what happens when dedicated students fall through the cracks of a promised system. In my junior year, I took both PLTW cybersecurity as well as video game creation, both wonderful classes that are exemplary sessions of technology education. If Computer Science Essentials introduced me to the possibility of a life and career in computer science and STEM, these 2 classes nailed it down for me as a definite. I had planned to take robotics engineering, AP Computer Science Principles, and AP Computer Science A in my senior year. But due to low enrollment, I wasn't able to take either of the 2 AP Computer Science classes and was only able to take robotics. I have since gone out of my way to take the AP Computer Science Principles exam through Dr. Burke and others, so I thank them for helping me in the face of barriers to grow as a technology good student. I am taking that exam without an official class. I'm doing it outside of the school. I have gone to the middle schools for 2 years now to present to incoming students about technology and its classes at SBRHS. After seeing 2 years of continuous threats to the computer science program, the greater STEM program, and its classes, it becomes more and more difficult to promise future techies that Somerset Berkley can hold a place for them and their wonderful ideas. I have seen proposals made to cut a science teacher, math teacher, and technology teacher. I understand the technology teacher's position was left vacant, but by simply cutting the positions, you stretch the remaining teachers thin. Not only will STEM classes, like some computer sciences, not run, but the ones who remain will not reliably be able to help those who wish to go beyond their curriculum and create great things. STEM is important, very important. Without STEM education, we lose out on students who can solve the world's problems. We lose out on the next great creator. We should strive as a community to support them, and that starts with teachers who can guide them to great opportunities and push them to be better students and better people. Thank you for your time.
Hello, I am Patrick O'Donovan, and I am a junior here at Somerset Berkley High School. This board weighing the possibility of firing 2 teachers, namely ones in math and science, are deeply concerning to me and many of my peers. This change can jeopardize a lot of our futures. For me, I love science, and that's what I'm really passionate in. And this shift in hiring can definitely heavily affect me because I really want to go into like physics and environmental science. And with these teachers being cut, like they won't be able to teach these courses anymore because a lot of these teachers we have to be shifted down to lower tier courses such as like intro physics and other stuff like that. And like, that's deeply worrying to me because like this is what I want my future to be. I shape my entire future around science and technology and math, and with these possible cuts, then my future could be in jeopardy. and all the schools I want to go to, like what classes they'll be looking at, I just won't be able to even get them anymore. Some courses that would most likely be affected by these cuts would be those of senior level physics. So that would be physics honors, physics ACP, and AP physics. This is due to how more teachers would be needed to actually teach intro physics, which would be the only physics education running through the school at that point. This also isn't mentioning how many teachers have shaped my entire life. Like, coming here as a freshman, I had no clue what I want to do with my future. I just didn't know. Like, I had no single thought about it. And then going through these 3 years, my future's been like shaped at this point. Well, I now have a good understanding that I want to help people when I'm older, that I want to go into science, and I want to actually be able to make a difference in the world. But I believe that by making these cuts, that you could be impeding on not only mine, but the future of my peers as well. While I do understand the reasoning behind this change, I believe it does fail to recognize the will of the student body. And while I understand you're trying to solve a very nuanced problem here that doesn't really have any clear solution to it, I don't believe this should be an avenue to just solve a budgetary restraint of the school. Seeing how deeply the solution would actually affect the entirety of the student body, and as I already said, like many of my peers who enjoy science and all that. I sincerely believe that you want to serve the Somerset Berkley community, but I do not believe that this change is helping meet that end. And I deeply hope you reconsider this change. Thank you for your time.
Hello, I am Giselle Pimentel. I am a junior here at SBRHS. You most likely see me as the camera operator to these meetings, and I would like to discuss topics similar to my peers, which is, I noticed that while reporting on the election of Massachusetts ballot question 2 related to MCAS, the biggest concern amongst parents and people who wanted to keep MCAS was the fear that their children would fall through the cracks, and there would be a lack of wanting to uphold standards among schools in Massachusetts. By cutting the staff from math and science departments, we're proving their point. Because the school is no longer constrained by the MCAS, we are dwindling what keeps us strong in the first place. The removal of MCAS was the right decision, as it unfairly impacted many students who had test-taking disadvantages. However, the only way we can maintain a good position in education is to not cut essential staff who make our achievement possible. We have prioritized electives over our core classes with this budget, which is ironic considering that these subjects are the ones we have to pass in order to graduate. We recognize that math and science are very core to our students, yet we are having teachers be cut, causing capacity issues, and this will cause a lack of connection between students and teachers, and this also leads to lab safety issues, as we sometimes work with dangerous materials like chemicals and fires, and it would be difficult to regulate every student because we all know that some people just don't take things seriously. And we've also progressed as a society into a STEM-based world with no stopping in the future with our technological advancements that humanity has made. But the only way we can continue these advancements is to teach a generation of math and science. By cutting these teachers, you are consequently cutting the futures of leaders in innovation, medicine, and research, which we need to advance in to make our society better than we left it. Now, the thing that I also noticed on a previous meeting was Berkeley and elementary schools also have been struggling with keeping their budget and keeping their fine arts departments, which is why I come here not to just say that we need to help these teachers, but also that we have to figure out more ways to make profit, because we can't simply run a budget by just cutting without figuring out ways to make more money in order to keep these positions. So I propose that we could start using the equipment that we've already spent money on in order to run summer programs for these elementary schoolers, and like say it could be a paid summer camp within science, music, and art with the materials that we already use. We could also rent out audio and video equipment to local businesses in order to help them grow and to help them advertise their products as well. But the issue with these is that you'd also need people to participate, which is why we need to have more advertising. And more advertising is, well, it could be free if we use social media and if we contact the right sources. But we also have to recognize that teachers are essentially have such a genuine impact on students. I myself, when I was younger, didn't really take school as strongly as I do, and it was because of teachers who really helped me and who really made a connection with me that inspired my curiosity and inspired my drive to want to make a difference in this world and to want to go into a field of reporting where I can give voices to others. But my curiosity was only sparked because of these teachers, and the only way that we can hold these connections is by having smaller classes, because you can't make a connection with someone by having 32 kids in a class. It's just gonna cause burnout and it won't have enough time to make these connections. I enjoy going after class, having conversations about the topics that we talked about, and that has made such an impact on my life, and I feel like the future generation needs that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right. My apologies for not putting the name up. Neville Morganberry, Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Again, as I stated the last meeting, my vote won't count. I'm scared. This is my scared face. You cut these positions, you cut the hallway monitors, you cut the folks in the cafeteria, and you leave me in a room with 7 to 10 kids and IEP plans that are severely to moderately behaviorally distressed in some fashion, or emotionally distressed, and I'm going to tell you right now, 25 years of experience, and I'm not going to make it. First time I'm willing to admit defeat before it started. And a lot of other teachers feel that, but they don't come down here like North Andover did and go out and protest. You're lucky you have teachers that are willing to work with little and less each day for the last 25 years. We can't take much more. You only have 888 or 886 students coming in next year. That really feels like 1,886. I've been screamed at more in the last 5 years than I've been in the last 25 years. I've broken up more fights than I have outside the bathroom or stood there and watched them. Supposedly there's a video clip of me out there doing this because I have long arms. The administration staff, which won't admit it, is exhausted. These 3 women and the 1 man in the office have done duty for God and country without enough support or money. They don't even have enough office space in there to sometimes deal with the fits and the spazzes and the fights that take place. It's got to stop. Please find the money. I'm coming to the end of my career, and I'm really looking forward to it. Not because I might leave a legacy behind. These 4 wonderful students have spoken beautifully, but because I'm walking out the door knowing that everything I did, and a lot of other people have done too, is being dismantled in front of us each passing day. I told Victor Machado 15 years ago, you're going to get what you pay for, and doomsday is here. You cannot take out the small little pieces of the building and have it work properly. We're taking the books out. I don't even know what that is. for Chromebooks that we can't afford in 5 years. What is going on with people in America? I'm tired. I am old and I am cranky. And I've got nothing to lose anymore. So please, go back, talk to the people, find the money, and it's not pitting technology against the football field. It's not pitting the cafeteria workers against the bus people. I mean, you're gonna really try to buy the yellow school buses? That was one of the rumors I've heard. Okay? We're trying to save the next generation. And your teachers that are exhausted. You cannot have this continue. This is your community. I get to leave. You will be in this. And the administrators that are downstairs, they don't want to deal with it anymore either. And I might be putting words in their mouth, and I apologize for that. But I have a feeling they're tired too. So please, go back, find that Southwest credit card airlines ticket or Southwest credit card that I mentioned last time, and just swipe it. Send the bill to someone. But you've got to find the money. Because I don't want to have to come up here and be like, can I please have $618 to pay for the transportation to PVD and be happy about that? No, I want the math teacher back. I want the science teacher back. I want reading teachers. So thank you for taking the time to listen. I have nothing else to say, and I hope you vote negative on this.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the discussion and vote for the annual budget for 2025, 2026. It might make sense for us to give a brief update on the budget subcommittee. We met last week.
I'm sorry, would I speak? Am I still allowed to do so?
Sure.
Thank you. Good evening, actually. I'm Kim Souza DeCudo. I'm a former alumni, a longtime resident of this community, assistant principal at Somerset Berkley Regional High School, and a parent of a third grader at North Elementary. I feel compelled to voice my deep concern about the proposed budget for the upcoming school year. After careful reflection on the potential impacts, I firmly believe that these cuts will be detrimental to the academic and social emotional well-being of our students. The proposed budget cuts, particularly the reduction of teaching staff, will have a direct and negative impact on student learning. Students in advanced placement classes will no longer have the opportunities they once had, as these cuts are leading to single sections of AP classes. Furthermore, students who rely on IEPs and 504 plans will no longer have manageable class sizes or the necessary support to meet their academic goals. This will compromise their ability to succeed. Over the past few years, we de-leveled our curriculum, combining advanced college prep and college prep courses. We were told that class sizes would not increase. This budget, however, does not uphold that promise. The loss of key staff, including a math and science teacher, will result in increased class sizes, leading to frustration among students who are not receiving the level of attention and support they need to thrive. Moreover, the proposed budget cuts to emotional support services, including the elimination of a guidance counselor, will only exacerbate the challenges our students face. Increased class size and lack of emotional support will create a ripple effect, negatively impacting students' well-being and overall learning outcomes. I understand that both towns are facing financial difficulties, and the residents are concerned about raising taxes. However, I urge the community to consider the long-term consequences of these cuts. At what cost to our students, who are the future leaders of our society, will we make these reductions? We owe them the same opportunities and support that we once had. While we are fortunate to have a beautiful, state-of-the-art buildings at the high school and middle school levels,
The proposed budget risks reducing these structures to mere facades. Without the resources and support systems in place, we will have beautiful buildings with students who struggle academically and socially. I call upon you to work together to find solutions that preserve the quality of education and support for all our students at Somerset Berkley. Our children deserve better. Thank you.
So we will move on to discussion of the annual budget for 25-26. For members who are not present, we held a budget subcommittee meeting last Tuesday. And we had a lengthy discussion about some of the remaining uncertainties in the budget. There are two main concerns that we had when looking at the preliminary proposed budget. One was the uncertainty about health insurance increase. Just so everyone's aware, I believe it's, if nothing is done, if there are no changes to the policies or if the surplus isn't tapped into, we'd be looking at a 30% increase in healthcare costs for our staff. There are some proposed actions that could be taken, and Mr. Machado maybe could speak to this more eloquently than I can, or Mr. Schoonover, but none of them have been determined as of yet. So we are tasked with building a budget based on that uncertainty, but knowing that the increase could be as high as 30%, which is an enormous increase, frankly. The other item that we discussed was uncertainty about utility expenses, given the, I'm going to phrase this as delicately as I can, given the uncertainty in the markets at the federal level with conversations about tariffs and other policies that might impact energy costs. And so after a lengthy discussion, we recommended as a subcommittee that we increase the utilities line by $25,000, frankly, as a hedge. And all of this is guesswork at this point, but we're in a position, unfortunately, where our normal forecasting models, by looking at trends and looking at current encumbrances, is we are less certain about that than we've ever been before. And the other recommendation was we had placed, the preliminary budget had a 16% placeholder for the increase in healthcare costs. We recommend that we increase that to a 20% increase. Again, that's about 2/3 of what the potential could be, which is maybe a bit conservative, but the subcommittee agreed that at this point we needed to err on the side of caution, not knowing what might happen. I don't know if Mr. Machado or Mr. Schoonover has anything to add, particularly regarding the health insurance situation.
No meeting on Thursday. So everything that you mentioned is where we're at. There is no new information, but there is a meeting scheduled for Thursday, I think at 10 o'clock, to see where we're at.
So just folks understand, unfortunately, we're in a position where we need to pass a budget. We have a deadline that we need to meet. We have an obligation. And there are always uncertainties. Chapter 70 is always a question mark, and we often we find out after we pass a budget. Sometimes Chapter 70 comes in below what we project. Sometimes it comes in right at our projection. In good years, it comes in above what we project, but we don't have a crystal ball. And you probably know there's been a lot of conversation at the state. I think there was just a meeting at UMass yesterday, a convening where there's being a lot of pressure exerted, thankfully, on the state legislature to try to do something about the Chapter 70 formula, specifically the inflation index, specifically the impact on regional and rural schools, which would impact our communities. But at this point, that is all talk. And it's all wishful thinking. for this budget. So it's not helpful to us at this point. So we are in a position where we need to make, difficult choices. Unfortunately, when it comes to health insurance, we have to pay that bill. That is not, when that amount is determined, that is not something that we can change. When we get, we've already, and Mr. Schoonover could speak about this, we've done a lot to try to conserve and make good choices about our utilities and our energy consumption. But at the end of the day, it's a bill that has to be paid. There's very little room for us as a committee to make impacts on the budget. We have contractual obligations which take up the vast majority of the budget, and those are things that we cannot cut. So that's the position that we're in. Those two changes to those line items would be a $95,000 difference. So $25,000 increase in utilities, $70,000 increase in the health insurance to go from 16% to 20%. That's our recommendation. The subcommittee, did not recommend changing the bottom line. We hear everyone's concerns about staffing. We're very cognizant of that. But we are not comfortable increasing the assessment to either town, or the subcommittee was not. And so our recommendation would be that the $95,000 would need to come from an additional FTE to be determined, or if there's some other way that it can be, that revenue can be found. But we would not recommend changing the bottom line budget number. That's sort of a recap of our subcommittee meeting. I don't know, Ms. Ashley or Ms. Ferrer, if I forgot anything.
No, I think you laid it all out.
Mr. Schoonover, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, that sums up last week's meeting.
Does anyone have any comments on the budget proposal?
Unfortunately, I wasn't here at the public hearing. I did attempt to call in, as you know, and we'll address that later on in the meeting. We don't get into these roles to make these tough decisions. This is the worst part about our jobs, when we hear students come up and advocate for their positions, their classes that they need and want and enjoy. It is always tough to hear it when we know we can't give it to them. There is no magic swipe card, Southwest card. This is not the federal government. We have to have a balanced budget because, you just can't charge something and give it to someone 6 years from today. It doesn't happen that way. I wish there was that magic swipe card, but I did take the opportunity to listen to all the feedback, the public input at the last meeting. I actually watched it 2 days ago. Many of the people who spoke to save positions were the same people that was in the room with us negotiating a new contract. We as a negotiating committee basically said if we were to give the increases that they deserve, there may be cuts. And one of the members on the other side of the team actually said, well, if that's what needs to be done, then sure. He basically gave us the blueprint. You can't ask for something and not realize that it's going to affect, especially when we warn. Listen, there is a limited amount of funds. People are struggling. Increasing taxes, go out and ask for more money. I can tell you, I have never once, school cuts hurt schools. Remember that whole banner? I was the person who was championing against it.
because it does, it really does. But there's only so many times you can ask the public who are also struggling with utilities, struggling with groceries, struggling with repairs on their houses, struggling with rent, struggling with, yes, next year we're gonna have to start charging for lunch again. There are parents who are struggling to put food on the table for their kids to eat. So these decisions that we're making with the budget, and again, 30% increase in health costs, I don't think it will be that high. I think we're going to try to keep it at 16, 20 tops, because we do have a surplus money. But it's not, I hate to say this, the thing that really concerned me about the last public hearing is when our staff feels like we are trying to take something away from them, when what we really need is our staff to come in and try to find new ways. How are we going to do this? Because
you are not.
Stop, excuse me. Can't
I will kick myself out.
Okay.
Because the other
Can't
thing is,
excuse
and you know
me.
something, I'm gonna tell you,
Excuse
if you
me.
wanna go even louder, I'm gonna tell you something. Having a teacher getting up there and saying that she wants to retire, I can tell you right now, I would never want my child in your classroom. Okay, but don't, you wanna go in a way, I would be more than happy to have a debate against you right now. Because you're thinking about yourself right now when there are people who are struggling, and I'm looking at the people who are struggling, and yet still trying to provide a great education for these students. So, with all due respect, you had your time to talk, it is my turn to talk. Because if you think I am enjoying this, you are out of your mind.
Thank you so much.
So, to get back to what I was saying, we need our staff to work with us. I think we have to make decisions on even administration, because what we heard is our administration are also struggling. Our teachers are struggling, our parents are struggling, everyone is struggling, but throwing more money into it is not the option that we have. We don't have that option. I don't know, but to think that we don't want to do this is what's painful for me right now. Because I can tell you right now, I haven't seen one person out in the street saying, yes, raise my taxes. Last year I did. Last year I actually, remember when we were going to cut our K-8 budget? Parents were saying, no, bring it up, we will support this. I'm not hearing any of that this year. And when I also hear that our sister schools, meaning Berkeley, is looking at cutting music and art from now the K-8 level, it's painful. Regarding the new buildings, we needed the new buildings, because you can't teach students when water's flowing down. So the only question I really do have is, I'm hearing that math and science classes are going to be high in number. I know that we already have kids signing up for these classes. Do you have an estimate and any numbers for these classes?
I know Dr. Brailsford still has been looking at these numbers pretty much daily.
I can have them for you in a week or so.
Okay. Because that's the only thing, obviously having classes of 35, 40 is outrageous, but I just want to say.
That would not happen.
No.
It's not even close to happening.
Okay. But I can honestly tell you that the school committee is not in favor of this budget, but it's one that we have to support. I don't think the administration is enjoying this budget, but I can tell you right now, this is where we're at. And at this point, it's not, they don't care. It's, we need to get together and finding new ways and how are we scheduling. We really need to think outside the box. Because I hate to say this, in the corporate world, when CEOs come down and say, hey, we're having a bad year, we need to reduce 10% from our budget, I can tell you right now, the staff says, okay. They don't say, oh, I can't do it, or I can't, because you know what they're going to be saying is, perhaps we don't have the right people. I'm just trying to reality, this is the reality that we live in the corporate world. We don't have that luxury. So I just think it's time for everyone to roll up their sleeves and try to figure out how to make it work, because it's not really because of one, it's because of the 4 students that got up and spoke.
Thank you, Mr. Machado. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to say a couple of things.
Mr. Pasternak.
First, I'd like to thank Victor for what he said, because I had a feeling that hopefully, or I hope that that conversation took place when they were having union negotiations, and it sounded like it did, because it probably would have been unfair for that conversation not to be had, because when you see raises going out, that's a big part of the budget. So money's got to come from somewhere to cover those raises. So I'm glad to learn that that conversation was held. But what I really wanted to say is I wanted to thank the 2 of the 4 students who came up and spoke, and I feel they had some very constructive ideas, because I think they both realize what we have is a revenue problem. And the gentleman came up with an idea of creating revenue by renting out the basketball court, maybe the track. That's a great idea. And then the young lady had an idea of, leasing out the audiovisual equipment or hosting things, and that's what we probably need to start doing in next year's budget, is trying to increase our revenue in ever so little ways we can. Because it's not just the fact that both towns having a revenue crisis, it's the whole state and the whole country. And there's nothing we can do about it really here. I mean, the last couple of years, I know Victor's very involved on the town side as well as probably everyone here. We had really hoped that Prismian was going to come in and be bringing us, $6 million by this year, and probably $8 or $10 million within the next couple of years, but that didn't happen. The project was delayed, and then it got killed when Trump came into office. So that's not here anymore. And if we had that $8 or $10 million, we'd be in a different boat right now for sure, because nobody wants to make cuts if they don't have to. We're building all over Somerset, and I think you are in Berkeley. I mean, land just everywhere is being developed to try to increase the tax base. And I know that the town officials are doing the best they can. But like Victor said, we have to live within a balanced budget on the state levels and on the municipal levels. We don't have the luxury of the federal government to be able to go out and print money and throw out any budget they want. So I support this budget in the budget subcommittee 100%. And I would just like to thank those 2 students for their great ideas, and hopefully we can implement them in the near future.
Thank you, Mr. Pasternak. Anyone else? I just wanted to point out a few bright spots, and also remind folks, to give some context to this conversation, that this is, we're all familiar with the financial constraints and limitations that we're facing. But I also like to, and this is not to pat ourselves on the back, but just to remind folks that the district has actually made some significant investments in staffing over the past several years. We have added positions, we've added a 3rd assistant principal, we've added adjustment counselors. We have added, through the leadership of Ms. Ashton, who's done a tremendous job in bringing our students back into district and building up our in-district programs. Number one, because it's whenever we can educate our students amongst their peers, that is always the right call, when that's educationally appropriate. And it also happens to often be financially advantageous too. But the real impulse by that is because that is what is best for kids. And when kids do need a more significant outside placement, we obviously support that. So I'm going to push back a little bit against the narrative that this committee and previous versions of this committee have not been investing in this district. You can go back and look at the last several budgets. You can go back and look at the staff additions that we've made. I also want to commend the superintendent and, frankly, members of this committee for not being in a position that a lot of other districts are right now, where people added on staff with ESSER funds, with one-time or expiring funds. They added a ton of staff, and now they're in a position where they have to either absorb that staff into their operating budget, which is impossible, which is why you're looking at 40 layoffs and things like that in other districts. We had one position last year that was ESSER funded, that when the ESSER, and we made it very clear that when the funding expired, that we would have to eliminate that position. One, that's responsible fiscal management, that's responsible budgeting, and we have an obligation to do that. A school committee has like 3 main obligations: budget, policy, and the hiring and evaluation of the superintendent. And I'm actually quite proud of this committee and the work that they've done, and the administration. We've added more staff than we have cut, and these cuts, the conversation seems largely driven by the financial situation in both towns. And while that is true, okay, it is also true that we have declining enrollment, and that math and science were not picked out of a hat by members of this budget subcommittee or by anyone else at this table. Math and science positions were chosen because enrollment in certain courses is down. And I would love, because I am so excited to hear from these students who are passionate about STEM, because they're absolutely right in everything that you said about how important it is. And I would love to hear from them, and not to put work on you, but how do we get more students with the elementary and middle school excited and passionate about the way you are, so that they want to take those courses? Because at the end of the day, when we don't have unlimited resources, we have to make decisions based largely on what classes students choose. And so I would love to have AP Physics, AP Computer, all those classes, you know, at 24 each, and that would be great. And frankly, if we had the enrollment to support that, we'd be having a different conversation right now. So I think we would all love to hear from you and your ideas about how do we ignite that in the younger grades, and how do we nurture that and support that, so that when students come to the high school, they're voting with their feet in those classes. Okay. Just one sec, and then I'm happy to come in. And I think also through the student advisory group, I'd love to hear plans about that. So these decisions about staffing they're not made randomly. I also want to talk about maximum capacity. I just want to be really clear. We live by a collective bargaining agreement. There's no language in the collective bargaining agreement that addresses maximum class size. And so when people talk about maximums, I think sometimes the maximum idea that people have here is a little bit different than they have at some other schools. So if you look at ratios of school to counselor, student to counselor, student to administrator, and class sizes in comparable school districts who are all facing the exact same, in some cases more significant, social emotional needs that students bring, and we recognize that it's different than it was 10 years ago. They are doing it with class sizes that are 28, that are 30. In fact, our sending districts, elementary and middle, are doing it with class sizes 28. And so sometimes I don't want to let, rumor fester into fact. No one here is talking about class sizes of 30s in core academic classes. Dr. Brailsford has done a tremendous job, and it's a really tough spot she's in, because her job is obviously to advocate vigorously for her school, for her staff, for her students. And she has done that. She's also done the hard work of looking at, okay, these are the sections, these are the numbers, and the hard work of where can we consolidate. It's not, I'm sure it's her least favorite part of her job. But that's what's required. There is no credit card. There is no one coming to save the day. We have to save ourselves, and we do that by passing a responsible, balanced budget. But I don't want people to think that we're going to walk out of here and that there's going to be 32 kids in a math class, because I don't think anybody at this table would support that. We do have to get more flexible. We have to get more creative. We have to get more innovative. which is not to say people haven't tried to do that, but the times they are changing, and not in a good way. And so I think it's very easy to forget all the things we've added, all the positive things that have been done, all the hard work that people are doing every day. And we recognize that being a great teacher is one of the most difficult jobs there is. And we have a lot of great staff, and we don't minimize the challenge of that work. But we do I feel confident that we can run classes with 22 and 24 students in it and still deliver world-class education. And so I don't want people walking out of here thinking that class size is exploding or that we're removing opportunities from students randomly. Like, these decisions are driven, frankly, by numbers. And nobody likes to think that way, but there's no way around it. The enrollment is the enrollment. The class, we have to pay our bills. That's where we're at. So, but we don't take this lightly, but that is our responsibility. And we have a responsibility, I think, to be cognizant of our taxpayers, as Mr. Machado said, because the students come to us from those families. They're coming into the school, they're part of those families, and those stresses are real. And I can't sit here and say that it's okay for Berkeley not to have art at all, not one art class in the middle school. But we're running art classes here in some cases with small class sizes. That's the school we built, right? There's a capacity for those classes. That's a great benefit for the kids here. We've got a whole town that isn't able to even feed into those classes. So although we represent the region, we would not be doing our jobs if we didn't think about the impact our decisions have on all of our students, pre-K to 12, because they all end up here, and we need them to be ready, and we need them to be well-resourced, and we need them to be supported so they can be successful here. And frankly, I think that the K-8s on both sides have taken the hits over the last few years, a lot more than we have here. And we could sit here and we could make a budget and we could deliver a bill to Berkeley Town Meeting and Somerset Town Meeting. We could, like some regional school districts do that serve our students. But frankly, I think we're a lot more responsible and a lot more thoughtful than that. We're not going to do that to our communities. And so I wish we didn't have to make cuts at all, but we do. And I am confident that this budget delivers the education our students need and deserve, and I think we can make it work. Anyone else have any comment? All right, at this time, I would entertain a motion. There are a lot of numbers here, so please bear with me. I'm actually going to take another sip of water. I would entertain a motion to approve the 2025-2026 gross operating budget in the amount of $21,982,797, with a net operating budget of $19,795,642. The total operating assessment, make sure I get that right. The total operating assessment is $12,410,588, of which $9,396,689 is assessed to the town of Somerset, and hold on, so let me back up. Capital assessment, I'm gonna redo this. All right, $21,982,797 is the gross operating budget. Total operating assessment of $12,410,588. With a capital assessment of $2,187,155. $1,633,043 to Somerset, $554,112 to Berkeley in the capital assessment. The operating assessment, $9,396,689 to Somerset, $3,013,899 to Berkeley, for a total assessment of $14,597,743, $11,029,733 to Somerset, $3,568,010 to Berkeley. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Pasternak and seconded by Ms. O'Brien. Is there anything further on discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. All those in favor, Mr. Machado.
Aye.
Ms. Solomon.
Aye.
Ms. Ashley.
Aye.
Ms. Ferrera.
Aye.
Mr. Pasternak.
Yes.
Ms. O'Brien.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The budget is approved. The next item on the agenda is the discussion and action on support for the Reed's Collaborative's purchase of a building for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing program. Mr. Schoonover, I know you presented this and you created a great FAQ for us.
Yes. So you were the first school committee that this was presented to, and I thank you for the questions that you asked that night. And I went back and started putting some of those questions in an FAQ document. Our executive director at Reed's added a few others, and then the next few superintendents who also presented added some questions too. So I hope that the information that is here allows you, just provide some more information based on where you were last time in order to share with me what your feelings are on this DHH, the program that Reed's wants to purchase a building. And this, Reed's has its next board meeting in early April. This does not require action from the school committees, as most actions for the collaboratives just require the superintendent's vote, but I certainly want to place a vote that represents your feelings on this, because this is a significant vote that it's not common for something like this to take place. So the information that is there, I know the primary questions last time were regarding a lease versus purchasing, and you have some financing over a longer time. So you have some of that information that's provided in the first two questions, just why a 5-year mortgage versus maybe a 10 or a 15, as well as leasing versus financing. So anyway, you've got that information as well as some others. If you have any specific questions, I can try to answer them for you as best I can.
Anyone have any questions? Well, in that case, although it's not necessary, we'll be happy to entertain a motion to support Reed's Collaborative exploring the option of purchasing a building for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing program. So moved. I have a motion by Ms. Ferrer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. O'Brien. Anything further on discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
So 6-1 in favor. Mr. Machado is opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is update on some of our athletics capital improvement projects. First up, we have discussion and action on awarding the baseball field renovation bid to Sports Turf Specialties.
Yeah, so you have, I'm trying to find the document that is here. We had our bid opening in late February. We received 3 bids. The lowest bidder was Sports Turf Specialties, and you have the base bid along with the 5 alternatives that the school committee discussed. In all, if all of the 5 alternatives were approved, the total amount was just under $835,000. The recommendation is to approve the base bid and the first 3 alternates, which would be for a total amount of $796,474.40. And there is a potential option of perhaps getting alternate 4 and alternate 5 also completed based on the contingencies for this project. So we might be able to do everything for 800,000, but that is the suggestion, the recommendation at this point is to approve that. And Sports Turf Specialties has an outstanding reputation. They've done work, I shared with you, they've done the field at Fenway, they have worked for the Washington Commanders, Boston College, I think Johnson & Wales was another. They do work at elite stadiums and sports complexes around the country. So that is the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Schoonover. Does anyone have any questions?
I kind of have a question, so I'm a little late to this here, but wasn't one of the problems that we had with the field a drainage issue?
That's what this is addressing.
And then, so alternate number 5 talks about a drainage trench. And is that part of, so that's not part of the recommended bid, correct?
Yeah, it was when the school committee, you're right, it's not part of the recommendation is for the top 3. So the order of the 5 alternates, this was voted on at the recommendation of activists, who is our project manager for this, and looking really at the base bid and those 5 alternates, so they have to be approved in the order that's presented here. You can't replace, you can't put alternate 5 above, say alternate 3. But there is some drainage that is along, I'm trying to figure out, I remember
This
from
was
the
the wall,
map.
wasn't it?
I'm sorry?
Along the wall going to the track.
I
They wanted to dig
I
it was
think
in
it is,
between,
right.
he said would help, so it's not the field. And we can get you that information when they do that whole presentation. I believe that number 5 was that he wants to do a drain, the top of the wall that goes to the track.
Yeah.
Yes, that then goes down, it flows through, so if we can get that in as well, he'd like to do that to reroute the water, but in this proposal, the drainage of both fields in its entirety would be rectified.
So the drainage issues that we're having now have been addressed with the base bid and alternates 1, 2, and 3.
Really, the base bid includes the drainage for the baseball field. Alternate 1 is addresses the drainage issue we have in the softball field. Alternate 2 is the old football practice field and the outfield, between the outfield of baseball and Clifford Holland. So we've been really unable to use that field for football practices for a number of years, and we've had to shift to the front fields. So having that work would allow us to bring the football practice back to that area, and we're also we would extend the area a little bit too, which helps us preserve what happens here in front, because we know the football equipment does do a job on grass. And then alternate 3 is changing that baseball outfield, so it actually changed the configuration a little bit, shortened right field, which allows us to expand that practice field a little bit more, so we get more use from that area. And then the other 2 alternates is addressing some drainage issue by the bullpen, and then, as Mr. O'Brien said, the drainage that's coming from that elevated layer from where the turf field is, which is contributing to some of the water accumulation along the third baseline, so that would address that. But activist thinks that we might be able to get alternate 4 and 5 without, with the base bid and up to alternate 3.
Okay, thank you both of you for that.
Any other questions? Any questions from Sean?
No, I just sent you the file.
Oh, there you go.
With the drainage.
Okay, if there are no further questions, then I would entertain a motion to award the baseball field renovation project to Sports Turf Specialties for the base bid and the top 3 alternates.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Ms. Ashley and seconded by Ms. O'Brien. Anything further on discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Thank you, everyone. And next is an update on the turf and track project.
so we're also working with activists on this. We signed an agreement with them for approximately $68,000 to be our project manager for the turf replacement and the improvement of the track. We actually have a kickoff meeting tomorrow afternoon, at which time we'll get into graphics, logos, a timeline, what we expect for when the bids would go out, which should be in just a few weeks. There's already been some work, as I shared with you. There isn't the need for a stormwater permit from the town, so they've already determined that. They've sent the surveyors out just in the last week or two to conduct some site work here. So the ball is rolling for that work, which would hopefully take place sometime this summer. Once the bid goes out, we would know exactly when that turf would be scheduled for replacement.
Any questions?
The buzz is on the color of the turf.
Yes.
I'm sure you've heard. Is that something that we do have an option, and would we entertain possibly letting the students vote?
Yes, it's an option. I did ask that. There isn't a single high school in Massachusetts that has an artificial turf field that is anything but green. So we would be the first, kind of like Boise State for college. And I think it's wonderful. I love giving students some opinions and some voice in decisions like that. We can talk about that, but I did ask because I was afraid that there would be a significant cost, and unless it was a custom color, well, I was told there wouldn't be much, if any, of charge at all for something other than a green turf.
And I know nothing, whether there's a drawback to a different color, heat, I know none of that. This is just some of the feedback that I've received.
And I certainly would want to ask the MIAA as well. I don't know if there are any regulations about that. And I know we can't hold tournaments here because we don't have bleachers on both sides of the field. That's why we don't get to host some of the major outdoor events. But I don't know if there are any regulations regarding that. So we would have to make a few contacts and check a few boxes.
Mr. Michaud.
Obviously, we had a student who spoke on behalf of grass versus field, turf. I'm sure when the building committee first designed the field that we had, there was obviously a reason why they went with turf versus grass. But I'm just wondering, how many schools, are there many schools going back to grass? Or I was just curious about that. Because obviously it is more expensive, but there is more of an operating expense. And I know the way we've taken care of our turf for the last 15 years, or by the time we replace it, it's almost like a break-even type of thing regarding the maintenance or whatever it may be. I remember reading about that, but I'm just wondering, are there any schools going back to grass?
I'm not familiar with any. I'm sure that there's always someone who would be considering that, but I'm not aware. In just the last few years, I believe both Dartmouth High School and Old Rochester Regional both switched from natural grass to artificial. Is that right for Dartmouth?
Dartmouth, yes. I'm not sure that it's accurate for Old Rochester.
Old Rochester I think.
Oh, they may be in process.
Okay.
I think, I think some of the, I appreciate the data, which is all accurate, especially in terms of the football piece of it. I think that high schools, it tends to be a versatility issue because there are so many groups that use it. So even when you're looking at things like lacrosse, which is relatively new here, field hockey, our state championship team, turf is actually the preferred surface. And so I think that sometimes at the high school level, it tends to be why the shift has happened, in spite of all of that data that you shared.
I can say, as an administrator at a school that has a turf, has a grass field, and that was largely community input. This is located near a lake, and there were concerns about. I will tell you that there's trade-offs with every surface, for sure. But the versatility piece, you really have multi-use fields for high school athletics. I will tell you that one of the problems that we have at my high school that has a grass field is that you can't use it most of the time, because when you play one football game, it gets tore up there, and then they can't practice on it. Our teams have to, the lacrosse teams, the soccer teams, they practice elsewhere, and games are, even the games are limited. And it's absolutely true that you often will see some more injuries with turf, with like ACLs, like knee, but you also see ankle injuries on the grass because you've got divots that are, it's really difficult. So it's absolutely a trade-off. I think it's something the building committee considered. I think there's been some debate about it. I think maybe there's some conversation on the vineyard happening. But I can say that just, I was talking to students today who were like, they have to travel to the middle school to practice lacrosse because they can't practice on it because then it won't be in any shape to play. So when you have limited fields, when you have professional sports, obviously, and you can limit the activity on that field just to that team and what they need, then absolutely grass is wonderful and lovely, but ours gets so much use. And then also it kind of ties into some of the suggestions about if you want to, as a revenue source, rent out your facilities. There's no way that we could do that and maintain them if we were to rent out, the field. If it were a grass field, it would get destroyed, and our own students wouldn't be able to use it. So that's just been my experience. And when I talk to our kids who play football on it, and Taunton travels to Sharon to play field hockey, they hate it. They hate it because the field is a mess, from football. So it's sort of a utility, try to get the maximum life and use out of limited space. So that's sort of that's my experience.
And in the fall here, the field is used from right after school until into the night, deep into the evening, between field hockey practices or games, followed by football, occasional soccer, marching band, always vying for their time. It's used from late August up until Veterans Day, pretty much, seems like around the clock, and then again on the weekends. So it does have a ton of use, and if we did have natural grass, I can't imagine what it would look like come Thanksgiving.
I think it alters the sport a little bit too for like field hockey and soccer, because on grass it slows down the game so much. I mean, I notice it when I go to watch my daughter play field hockey. They go to a grass field, especially if the grass is longer. The game is just so much slower.
And to Mr. Schoonover's point, for field hockey at least, I know you cannot host when you get into later, if you don't have turf. You can't do that on a playing field.
Well, we'll look forward to continued updates on that and see what the MIA has to say about Raider Blue.
That's what they say.
It's harder than Boise.
I know, just for public, I know that folks had some questions about timeline. So our hope, if all goes according to plan with the turf and track project, would be that it would be ready for fall.
Yes, this is work that would take place over the summer. It would take about 3 to 4 weeks in total to replace, remove the existing turf and replace it and line it and do everything else that's required. The track improvements, if that can't happen over the summer, that is not at a point where it's crucial to have that done for the fall, so that might be a project that could be delayed slightly, but the focus would be replacing the turf.
Right. Because in the fall, it's cross-country, so, right? For track, like,
right.
The fall outdoor season is cross-country, not on the track for the spring, right? Okay, great. Anyone have any other questions? Fabulous. Thank you very much. Let's keep it moving. Next item on the agenda under new business is we have discussion and action on the 2025-2026 school calendar. Mr. Schoonover.
this document. Second, please. Okay, so the 25-26 school calendar, just to highlight some of the key points of this. The earliest that teachers can return for the STA contract is August 25th. That happens to fall on a Monday this year. So we would use the typical schedule to start the school year that we've used in the past. Teachers would return on the 25th and 26th, a Monday and a Tuesday. Students in grades 9 through 12 would start on Wednesday and Thursday, the 27th and 28th. Also, the STA contract says that any Friday before Labor Day would be a non-school day. So everyone would have the 4-day weekend, and then we would return on September 2nd. There are a number of just some days to highlight, mostly the early release days that would be part of the high school's 25-26 calendar. Wednesday the 24th would be a professional development day. Wednesday, October 29th would also be a PD day, as would Wednesday, January 28th. So there would be 3 early release days for PD, and I'll get into the 4th one in just a second. Those 3, as of right now, would be shared with the Somerset Public Schools, but I'll add something to that in just a second. The day before Thanksgiving is also a contractual early release day. On Monday, April 13th, so the day that Somerset has its annual town election, and the election is open from 12 to 8 p.m. So what we've done in the past is have an early release day for students. They're out of here, students are out by 11:30, there's no overlap between the voters and our students. And then after that, it turns into a PD day for our teachers who are remaining. Other than that, because this is a voting precinct, it would be a non-school day. It's the only other option that we would have there. And also by the contract, the last 5 days of the school year are early release days for the high school only. So that would be no snow days, June 11th through the 17th. And the only other different component of this, actually it would be similar to this year, I was looking at when the Christmas break would begin, and typically would be the 23rd. The 23rd happens to be on the Tuesday. There was so much, there were positive comments that were made this year about the extended holiday break that we had. So I sent out a poll to our staff. I included the charts there, and overwhelmingly teachers supported having the last day of school on Friday, December 19th, and really going those 2 extra days. Rather than having the last day on June 15th, the last day would be the 17th instead. So the calendar reflects that 2-week break at Christmas and New Year's. So with all of this, let me see, I think those are the main highlights. I don't know if you have any particular questions, but I do want to add, when I presented this to the Somerset School Committee last week, there is consideration there about the early release days and perhaps being too much for our elementary parents in particular. So the Somerset School Committee voted to approve the calendar with the exception of the early release days at this point, and I suggested that that is an item that maybe both committees can look at together at our joint meeting on the 8th.
So the only election for this whole school calendar is the April 13th?
Correct. There are no
We're in an
state
off-cycle
or
year.
federal elections either in September or November this year.
And the concern, just for my own edification, the concern with the early release, the 3 early release days from the point of view of the Somerset K-8 is that in terms of families for like how to get the kids early, that type of an issue.
And there are additional half-days at the elementary level specifically that are intended to make up a discrepancy in the prep time allocated for middle school and high school teachers compared to elementary teachers, just due to the nature of their schedules.
And so for those 3 dates, we would talk about it, but for transportation purposes and logistics, it would make sense if we were
Aligned.
Aligned, right?
Mhm.
Okay. And is there a conversation about those 3 early release days for the high school purposes are used for PD?
Yes.
Okay.
Same for takeaway.
Okay.
With just the 3 PD.
So is there any discussion about how to, an alternate plan for providing that type of, that PD if we were to make those full school days?
That's what we would have to tackle that in terms of providing, offering time, release time for teachers, which would involve substitutes in for them to teach classes. So we'd be removing teachers from their students to provide the professional development, which is always not something that we really want to explore, but that really would be the next option that we would have to look at. And if you recall, in negotiations, we're trying to get a second full day of professional development built in, but it wasn't something, a proposal that was accepted and voted into the contract. So this is what we have. We do have limited professional development time, but we would work together to create a plan to provide PD for our staff. It just wouldn't be school-wide. We would never be able to offer it to everyone at once.
So right now, if those 3 days were made full school days for students, the PD days would be the first 2 days, first 2 days of school. Once a
More
PD,
orientation days, right.
orientation and.
There's a little, I think we have 2 hours or so of professional development, usually.
And that's it?
And then we have a full day in November.
One full day.
We still have, even though there isn't an election day, a lot of organizations still use that day for professional development, and a lot of schools still will schedule that PD day on that particular one. So if there is ever the opportunity for collaboration with other districts, we like to hold that one, whether or not we have an election day.
That's the November 4th date?
Yes.
Great. Okay. All right, those are my questions. So, anyone else? I'd entertain a motion to approve the calendar as presented, with the exception of September 24th, October 29th, and January 28th, currently listed as half days, early release days, I should say, and maybe potential full days to be discussed at a joint meeting with the Somerset School Committee. Motion by Ms. Ferrer, do I have a second? Second by Mr. Pasternak. Anything further on discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, we're gonna really welcome Mr. Pasternak by tasking him with some subcommittee assignments. We're grateful to Mr. Machado for stepping up, especially on the health insurance trust. We know what an important subcommittee that is and how important that is to our budget and our bottom line. Given Mr. Pasternak's experience in this area, I would entertain a motion to appoint Mr. Pasternak to both the OPEB and Health Insurance Trust subcommittees.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Machado and seconded by Ms. Ashley. Anything further on discussion?
Any other committees you can take off my plate?
We're gonna ease them in.
I like these two. so
Well,
I'll definitely
okay,
say
great.
those.
Yeah. We get to do all of it again in May, right? Great, thank you, and thank you for taking that, motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You don't get to oppose. Great,
That was the
perfect.
quickest motion.
So moved. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
When's the meeting? Thursday?
Thursday. Theory.
Friday, I thought.
Is it
Friday at 10.
Friday,
Friday,
10.
10.
It's ER here. All right, perfect.
He's on top of it.
Right up, right into it. Thank you so much. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's update. Let's just go over.
Yeah, thank you. I really, with all the celebrations that took place at the beginning of the meeting, I had originally plan just to highlight all of the great things that our kids are doing. But between the celebrations and what Ryan, Mr. Vieira offered, they did it for me. I do want to add that we started our MCAS testing today at the high school. From what I understand, you know, there was that concern about opting out, who would participate, but I understand everything went very smoothly, and it was taking place as if it was any other year, which is good. I do want to, if I may, just address, similar to you, Mrs. Andrews, regarding the students who spoke earlier. And one, I know they're speaking on, you know, advocating for the impact of what cut positions would be, but listening to them, I mean, how can anyone not be so immensely proud of the students that we have at Somerset Berkley? And I know that the name, I'm just going to pick one out, but Daniel Svoboda, we know, we hear that, I think, every other meeting as a Raider of the Month. And he demonstrated tonight exactly why he is so frequently the Raider of the Month. It is, I know one of the students spoke about, they all spoke about the importance of STEM. And one student mentioned physics in particular, and I was a physics teacher. I have a physics background, and STEM is near and dear to me. And whenever we're looking at reductions in really any subject, but I think I have a bias towards STEM, it hurts. It really does. And Daniel, I do want to, I want to speak to Daniel and the others, because learning about his experiences going down and speaking to our middle school students, just as you said, one of the things that I don't understand is why we don't have more kids going into physical science and technology and engineering. We do a wonderful job in life sciences, which is amazing. Project Lead the Way, over 100 kids involved in those classes, and we heard some of the courses that kids are taking. Trying to expand that in computer science too, but we just don't have the numbers in physical science. And I want to talk to all of these students and learn what can we do to really get kids more excited about engineering and technology and physics and chemistry and all of these, because in Massachusetts we are really one of the life science capitals of the world. But we're also in that physics and engineering, we're one of the tech leaders in the world too. So what can we do to really get more kids interested in that? Because that's the future, right? And it's been the future for decades, but it's always just growing and expanding and changing. So doing that is so important. And it was just Gisela was talking about advertising and marketing, and we need to do a better job of that. I totally agree. So anyway, I'm going to be reaching out to all of you, and I want to pick your brains because we need to do a better job. And in physics, I know the student who mentioned that, like, I think next year, and Dr. Brelsford can correct me if I'm wrong, but between AP Physics, Honors Physics, and our Advanced College Prep Physics, I think we had 17 total upperclassmen between those 3 courses interested in taking physics. Like, why? And we do have a lot of kids who are taking life sciences, which is wonderful. But, you know, we don't have that interest in the other areas. And when you've got 17 total kids wanting to take 3 different sections of physics, it's really hard to run without combining them, running sections of 5 or 6 students. So to fix the problem, we need to get more kids interested in wanting to take those courses. So it's a little maybe soapboxy, but I just wanted to think and address what the students said and say this is certainly something that we need to focus on, because that is the future, as they said very eloquently. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schoonover. And we look forward to maybe hearing a report back after you've had a chance
Yeah.
to talk with them. I think building that pipeline is something that we know is a challenge, and it's, if the demand is there. I think the members of this committee would be more than happy to meet it with the resources required to do that. And especially useful if we're engaging in conversations about graduation requirements and program of studies and dual enrollment and other, sort of flexibility in some of those conversations too. I think their input would be crucial for that too. So bring that back to us. That would be great. And thank you all again. Next up on the agenda is staffing update.
Yeah, just one resignation this month, a part-time food service worker, as you've seen from previous months. This is one of those areas where there tends to be a high turnover, but just that one, no appointment to report.
Thank you. All right, next up on the agenda we have updates. Ms. Solomon, do you have any updates from Berkeley?
Not really. The bulk of our last meeting was our budget presentation, which, as we've discussed at previous meetings, is extremely challenging, I guess is an understatement for this year. We have a $600,000 budget deficit in Berkeley. Our superintendent is exploring every avenue, every possibility. She sort of sent out so there's an option for a grant through the state, a 1-year, one-time aid, sort of, to help us that we're applying for. She sort of sent out a call to action to the community. Reach out to your state rep, send a letter, tell anybody you can. We're hoping to get that. Haven't heard back on that yet, but she is having a public budget presentation tomorrow night at the library in hopes of sort of reaching the community, reaching those parents that we need to advocate for us. But that's basically all the info from Berkeley. We're still working through that budget. I'm hoping to close the gap.
Thank you.
May I ask or add something?
Yes.
A number of years ago, and I don't know, I haven't thought of this until just here right now, we had a subcommittee. It was called the Tri-District Collaboration Subcommittee. And when we met, it was always through the lens of how can Somerset Berkley and Somerset Berkley work together, maybe share resources, share staff. It never transpired into any shared staff, but I wonder if this is an opportunity to reestablish that, whether it's a formal subcommittee or just some people sitting around a table trying to, just put our heads together to see if there is a way, since all 3 districts are in this position of looking at our staffing. Maybe there's a way that the 3 can share something and alleviate some of the costs for all of us.
Yeah, I'll definitely, have some discussions and present it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Somerset updates. Go ahead.
We had a meeting yesterday, last week.
It was like yesterday.
I guess.
Basically, a majority of our meeting was also on the budget. Originally the superintendent presented a 2.5% budget. It really did a job on the K-8 program. Nothing like our friends in Berkeley, but unfortunately we're in a little better situation with the K-8. So we did add a few roles back in, and it's at 3.5%. I believe we're voting on it next meeting.
Our public hearing is next week, April 1st.
So with that, we're happy to say that our window project at Chase is completed. We did speak on the early release, as Mr. Schoonover had mentioned. And basically everything else, it was really focused mostly on the budget, so, but that's about it.
The mural. What's
Oh,
the
and the
other?
mural, that's right. And we have this artist who's going to do a mural on the Somerset, the South Elementary. And looks, you know, the photos that we received, it looks pretty good. So it's one of those things that it's almost at cost regarding the paint. So that's about it.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, topics not anticipated by the chair, 48 hours in advance. I have none. Moving along, action items for future meetings, other than what we discussed this evening, does anyone have anything?
I'm gonna have to ask that we put remote meetings issues again.
What's the issue?
They said you can't hear
The
us.
sound?
You just cannot hear. Matter of fact, it was quite frustrating when you're on vacation and you know that there's a budget hearing and you really want to participate and you were asked because of potential quorum issues. You know, I just feel like, you know, we've spoke about this in a while, but I'm looking at it as a simple, you know, I spoke to a few of my IT people and there's something called a daisy chain USB microphones that you can have like 12 microphones and you can work through Zoom. So I just don't, I have a lot of issues, so I think we'll save it for the next meeting.
Anyone else? Just, I think people probably are aware, but I believe the legislature did extend the remote meetings, I forget, through June 27th. Okay, so we obviously prefer to meet in person whenever possible, but that has been extended, and so when folks are traveling or unable to be here, or sometimes for subcommittees, we'll use the remote option. So that's been extended, which I think is good news. Any other action items for future meetings? Okay. In that case, I'll move on to consider approval. You have open session meetings from February 11th, February 27th, and March 11th. I would entertain a motion to approve those open session meeting minutes as presented.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mr. Machado and seconded by Ms. Furr. Anything on discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
I think I'd probably have to abstain from the February 11th meeting.
You can vote to approve them even if you're not here, but you can certainly abstain if you like.
I'll abstain from February 11th since I wasn't here. I'll
Okay.
vote yes on the other two.
All right, we moved public input to the beginning, so next on the agenda, I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of a general or special law or federal grant and aid requirement. February 11th, 2025 executive session minutes, and please note that the committee will not return to open session. Second. Motion by Ms. Ferrer and seconded by Ms. Ashley on roll call. All those in favor, Mr. Machado?
Aye.
Ms. Solomon?
Aye.
Ms. Ashley?
Aye.
Ms. Ferrera? Mr. Pasternak?
Aye.
Ms. O'Brien? Aye. And the chair votes aye. Thank you, everyone.